Our today's lesson is on linear functions and their inverses. An inverse operation undoes the original operation. Similarly, the inverse of a function is one that undoes the original function. For example, we know that with addition, we know subtraction is the inverse operation of that. Multiplication, we know division is the inverse operation. So it is with functions. Right, find the inverse of f of x equals 2x plus 1. All right, so the first thing I do is I write it like a line. Instead of f of x equals 2x plus 1, I'm going to write y equals. Instead of fx, I put y equals 2x plus 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to solve for x in terms of y. That's the first step you do, is solve for x. You can have y in your answer though, so in terms of y, in terms of x. You solve for x in terms of y. All right, so you want x by itself, so we're going to subtract 1 to both sides. So you get 2x equals y minus 1. Then you want to divide both sides by 2. You can isolate x. So we get x equals, then I just say y minus 1 over 2. I can express that as y over 2 minus 1/2. Then you can replace the x, the y, with f of x. So I'm going to say f, but we write this way when we say inverse. You see this little -1 up here. And now the new rule is I replace y with x. So I'll put x over 2 minus 1/2. Or you see some people may do it this way. You might see 1/2 times x minus 1/2. And that's the inverse of the original function. Right, find the inverse of f of x equals 2x minus 3. Again, put y equals 2x minus 3, and I'm going to solve for x in terms of y. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I get y plus 3 equals 2x. And then I simply divide both sides by 2. So I get x equals y over 2 plus 3/2. So I can say f of the inverse function of f of x is 1/2 x plus 3/2. That's it. Now, what if you have fractions in it though? Find the inverse of f of x equals 3x minus 3/4. Well, you're going to do the same thing. Y equals 3x minus 3/4. And we're going to solve for x in terms of y. So the opposite of negative 3/4 is plus 3/4. Equals 3x. And what you're going to do is divide both sides by 3. So this is the same as y over 3 plus 3/4. And you can say times 1/3 if you will. So we get x equals y over 3. But notice that 3 divides to itself one time. So you're just left with 1/4. So I can say the inverse function replace x with y for y is x over 3 plus 1/4. Right, find the inverse of f of x equals negative x plus 4. All right, y equals negative x plus 4. We're going to solve for x in terms of y. So subtract 4 to both sides. So you get negative x equals y minus 4. And what we're going to do is going to multiply both sides by negative 1/2, or negative 1. You want this to be a positive x. So when you do that, you're going to change the sign here. So that'll be negative y plus 4. And negative x times negative 1 is positive x. So you're going to replace y with x. And notice that you're going to get the same function again. This is a special inverse because the inverse is the same function. All right, find the inverse of f of x equals x minus 1. So I'm going to put y equals x minus 1. And we're going to solve for x in terms of y. So the opposite of negative 1 is positive 1. So you get y plus 1 equals x. So let's say the inverse function, simply x plus 1, which corresponds to numbers. Notice that the opposite of subtraction is addition. So if that function subtracts 1 from every number, the inverse function is going to add 1 to every number. All right, this concludes our lesson for today.